Kyle Busch was having the best race of his entire 2026 Cup Series season at Watkins Glen International on May 10th. He was sitting inside the top five, running consistently with the leaders, and finally giving Richard Childress Racing fans something to feel genuinely good about after a long and difficult stretch of results. That should have been the headline coming out of Watkins Glen for the number 8 team. A struggling driver finally putting together the kind of performance that reminded everyone what he is capable of. But as the checkered flag came down and the results started filtering through, something else entirely grabbed the attention of the entire NASCAR world. Kyle Busch got on the radio and asked for a doctor, and the 4 words that followed that request are the kind of words that make every NASCAR fan sit up straight and pay very close attention to what is happening. Before we get into exactly what was said and what it all means, if you enjoy honest and thorough NASCAR coverage that actually digs into the stories that matter rather than just scratching the surface, go ahead and subscribe to this channel right now and drop a like on the video. We are here every week breaking down the biggest stories from around the garage, and we want you to be part of that conversation. Now, let us walk through exactly what happened at Watkins Glen with Kyle Busch. The situation did not come completely out of nowhere, and that is an important piece of context to understand before anything else. During the FS1 broadcast of the race, veteran NASCAR announcer Mike Joy shared some information that not everyone watching at home may have caught. Joy mentioned that Kyle Busch had been feeling sick throughout the entire week leading up to the Watkins Glen race. The 2-time Cup Series champion had been dealing with a sinus cold that had been bothering him for days before he ever climbed into that race car on Sunday. So when the green flag dropped, Kyle Busch was already not at 100%. He was already pushing through something that most people would have used as a reason to take it easy. But that is not how Kyle Busch operates, and anyone who has followed his career knows that sitting something out because he does not feel great is simply not part of how he thinks about racing. What happened next during the race is the part that really got people talking. While the race was still going on and while Kyle was still running competitively inside the top 5, he got on the radio with his Richard Childress Racing team. His voice was calm. There was no panic in it, no sense that something catastrophic had just happened. But what he asked for was direct and impossible to misread. He asked his team to find someone named Bill Heisel, describing him as the kindred doctor. And then he told them clearly that he needed that doctor waiting for him after the race. His team came back and asked where he wanted the doctor to meet him, whether at the car or somewhere else. Kyle's answer was short and left very little room for interpretation. He told them he wanted the doctor at his bus because he was going to need a shot. That word, shot, is what immediately set off a wave of conversation across the entire NASCAR community. In a medical context during a racing weekend, asking for a shot almost always means a pain relief injection of some kind, which naturally led to the question that everyone watching started asking at the same time. What exactly is going on with Kyle Busch? What is hurting badly enough that he needs an injection the moment the race finishes? And why, if something is wrong enough to require that kind of medical attention, is he still out there running in the top 5 of a Cup Series race? That last part is actually the most revealing detail in this whole story, because Kyle Busch did not slow down. He did not bring the car into the pits and hand it over to a relief driver. He did not withdraw from the race or give any indication from his driving that something was significantly affecting his ability to compete. He stayed right there in the top 5, running consistently with the leading contenders, managing his strategy, and doing everything a driver is supposed to do over the course of a full race distance. Whatever pain or discomfort he was carrying with him into that cockpit on Sunday, it was not enough to make him stop competing. But it was clearly enough that he wanted medical help ready and waiting the moment the race was over, which tells you that whatever he was dealing with was real and significant, even if it was not affecting his lap times. The physical demands of Watkins Glen as a racetrack add another important layer to this story. Watkins Glen is not a typical NASCAR oval where the physical demands, while real, are somewhat more predictable and repetitive in nature. It is a full road course with left turns, right turns, hard braking zones, elevation changes, and corners that pull at every muscle in a driver's body throughout the entire race distance. Drivers work the steering wheel constantly, The braking forces put enormous strain on the legs. The lateral cornering loads pull at the neck, shoulders, and core lap after lap after lap. The cockpit gets intensely hot. Every part of a driver's body is being asked to work hard from the moment the green flag drops to the moment the checkered flag comes out. For a driver who is already battling a sinus cold that has been dragging on all week, taking on a road course like Watkins Glen represents a genuinely significant physical challenge. The fact that Kyle managed to run inside the top 5 through all of that says something real about his mental toughness and his ability to separate what he is feeling physically from what his hands and feet are doing inside the car. The specific details of what Kyle asked for after the race add a bit more texture to the picture. He did not ask to be met at the car itself when the race finished. He specifically asked for the doctor to come to his team bus. That choice was clearly deliberate. The team bus offers privacy in a way that the infield and pit road area simply cannot. There are no cameras pointed at it, no reporters crowding around, no microphones being pushed towards someone trying to get checked out quietly. Kyle Busch wanted to handle whatever was going on away from the spotlight, which is completely understandable, but also meant that very little information made its way out afterward. Dr. William Heisel was identified as the medical professional Kyle had requested, and arrangements were reportedly made for him to be waiting at the bus as Kyle had asked. But beyond that, the details become very thin very quickly. Richard Childress Racing has not released any kind of official statement explaining what was wrong with their driver after the race. They have not said whether the shot that Kyle requested was administered or what it was for. They have not addressed whether he needed any additional treatment beyond that initial visit. They have not said whether this is something that could affect his availability or his performance at upcoming races. For a team and a driver that are already under a significant amount of scrutiny given the winless streak and the mid-season crew chief change that happened earlier in the year, the silence feels particularly loud. Fans who were already watching the number 8 car very closely now have an additional question hanging over everything, and the team is not providing any answers. The reaction from NASCAR fans on social media was immediate and exactly what you would expect when something like this involves a driver as well known and as closely watched as Kyle Busch. Every major platform lit up with people sharing the radio clip, analyzing the tone of his voice, and trying to figure out from the limited available information what might actually be going on. Some fans noted that he sounded calm and concluded that it probably was not anything too serious. Others pointed out that Kyle Busch has a long history of downplaying physical issues, and that his calm tone on the radio does not necessarily tell you much about how serious the situation actually is. The fact that he finished the race was reassuring to some, but others started asking what happens if this is something that gets worse without proper rest and treatment. What does it mean for the races coming up? Could this be part of a longer, ongoing issue that the team simply has not made public yet? Those questions do not have answers right now, and that is the genuinely frustrating reality of where this story sits. What we know for certain is that Kyle Busch went into race day at Watkins Glen already fighting a sinus cold. We know he drove a demanding road course race from inside the top 5 all the way to the finish. We know he calmly asked his team mid-race to arrange a doctor and specifically requested a shot after the race ended. And we know his team has stayed completely silent about what happened after he got out of the car and made his way to the bus. What we do not know is whether this is a straightforward situation where a tough competitor dealt with a rough week of illness and needed a bit of extra medical support to get through a physically demanding race, or whether there is something more serious underneath all of this that has not come to light yet. Kyle Busch has built his entire career on being one of the most relentlessly competitive and physically resilient drivers in the history of this sport. The fact that he stayed in that car and fought for a top 5 result while clearly dealing with something real is completely consistent with who he has always been as a competitor. But the silence from Richard Childress Racing and the complete absence of any official explanation leaves the NASCAR community sitting with more questions than answers as the season moves forward. All eyes will be on Kyle Busch at the next race. If he shows up looking like himself, helmet on and fully focused on chasing the front of the field, then maybe this turns out to be nothing more than a difficult week that got worse at the worst possible time. But if something is still clearly bothering him, or if the team continues to say nothing about what happened at Watkins Glen, then this story is not going anywhere. The racing world is watching and waiting for answers. And right now, Richard Childress Racing is the only one who has them.